Welcome to From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. On today's show, we're going to talk about sports, education, family, faith, and entertainment, and how those things can collectively or separately impact our lives. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Before we bring our guests on today, as I always do, I want to give honor to God who's the head of my life. None of this, anything that I do, would not be possible without Him. And this past week, I was in Cocoa Beach, Florida, for a tournament with my softball team, and it's always wonderful as an administrator or as a coach to be around student athletes and to see them have the different experiences that they have. I want to say that kudos to our softball program. They're in the NJCA Division Two Region 24 ranks. They went 5-0 this past week, and I could not be more proud of our Lewis and Clark Community College women's softball team and the things that they've done and that they're doing. And I want to give a special shout out to Coach Rhonda Roberts, who is an outstanding coach. She does our eligibility and compliance. She's a great administrator, and I couldn't be who I am inside of Lewis and Clark Community College athletics without her help. So thank you very much. So now let's talk about or bring on our guest. And our first guest is Miss Jordan Kilpatrick. She is the author of a new book called Be Restored, A Journey to Healing. She's a life and women's coach, and she's an advocate of the empowering of women. Thanks for being on the show, Jordan. How you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm so delighted to have you. In full disclosure,
Thank
Miss
you.
Jordan Kilpatrick, she is my younger cousin. My mother, Patricia Brown, and her father, Greg McCoy, are siblings, and she's
See?
well accomplished. And I'm so happy, Jordan, to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And we'll get to your book in a little bit. Our next guest is Dr. Michael Macklin. Dr. Macklin is a recent TEDx Talk orator. He was recently named #1 of the 10 most successful DEI leaders to watch in 2023. He's an award-winning leader in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility outcomes. And he's a former new principal of the year and educator of the year. Dr. Macklin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I am just extremely excited to be here and honored to be here. And so really excited to be here. Also, thank you also, Coach Jordan.
And I can't say enough that the world gets smaller and smaller, right? So Dr. Macklin and I met at the barber shop, nonetheless, and we got to talking. And I said, hey, Dr. Macklin, if I can do anything for you, if I can come and speak at any of your stuff, and he said the same. And then it just hit me. Let me have him as a guest on the show. And so Dr. Macklin is here. Thank you for being with us.
No problem. I think when we leave the barbershop, just because of the hairstyle that I do, that I wear, that I think that I leave probably some money on the table because of that. But
Right.
Dr. Brown, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Dale Robinson. Mr. Dale Robinson is currently the athletics practice leader and senior consultant with Spelman Johnson. He was in 2009, he was named the commissioner of the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletics Conference. He was the first person of color to hold that role. He was the chair of the NCAA Division II Football Committee, and he's a former student athlete, and he is a member of Omega Psi Phi. Dale, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Dr. Brown. Hey, this is a illustrious group. I am glad to be with all of you thought leaders. No better way to spend a Sunday evening than spreading our thoughts and educating others and talking about our stories. So it's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And for my viewers and for my guests here, I've titled this episode 5 as Titans of the Industry because they are all titans in what they do. I met Mr. Robinson through the work that he does, and he has also been a mentor for me professionally in my career, and I thank him for being here. And as we start on the topics that we were talking that I sent to you all, um, let's talk about NCAA and how um, they're working to better themselves in the D and I work. Well, a couple of years ago, the NCAA tournament, on our women's side, our women weren't treated as fairly as our men when it came to accessibility to weight rooms, when it came to accessibility to different different necessities that they needed. Here's my question, and I'm gonna start with you, Dale Robinson, Mr. Robinson. How much more work do we have to do in athletics with DE and I?
Quite a bit. I think that it depends on what particular lane we want to pick. In educating and making people aware, quite a bit of work done to be done. I think that a lot of times when we are at these different venues and platforms, people are speaking to the choir, those that are in it, those that are working every day, those that are trying to progress people forward. But in educating those that have power and decision making, not that we don't, but there's all a lot of individuals that don't, that have a lot of sense of ignorance on what it means. I say that it needs to be covered in full scale. It needs to be covered in a holistic way. To me, that's I got 3 P's. That's personnel, policy, and programming. In the programming, you educate. In the policy, you bring forth something that can have change. And in personnel, you try to increase the circle that's around the table, whether that's coaching, whether that's administrative, whether that's the population of students that's playing that sport. The win was a mishap that was brought to the attention of everybody, but how many other things that are out there that are like that are inequities? And there's a ton of them.
Yes, sir.
We're still making strides. There's still things that are unexposed, and there's still work to be done. And my colleagues around the table are doing some of that work.
Yes, sir. And Jordan, the work that you're doing right now in empowering our women, you're coaching them to deal with some of the life's lessons that they're learning right now. How is the DE and I work that you're doing in education? How is that impactful to the individuals that are getting that work from you?
Yeah, well, I'll say that most particularly that it starts with the education because that's foundational, right? And so spreading the word, making sure that folks are educated about for one, the inequalities that we see not only in sports and athletics, but unfortunately across the board. And we see it in every industry, no matter if it's corporate America, in the medical field. Of course, we're seeing it very prevalently because of the platform in athletics. But I think the education component is important with making sure that folks know what the inequalities look like, for one. And then figuring out how can we make actionable steps to make some changes, because we're doing a lot of discussion, we're having a lot of conversation about it. Folks are using a lot of buzzwords. We hear the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, the accessibility. Those words are buzzwords that we're hearing going around, but where are we moving the needle? And those are actionable steps. So I start with just the education component, and with coaching, letting women know that they are equipped, just as well as the next person, and knowing how they can bring what they have to the table so that they can kind of combat towards some of those inequalities and inequities that we see. Because sometimes it's not only the equitability, but sometimes it's the equality as well. And those, have a huge differentiation, which we often get mixed up because folks are ignorant to the difference between equality and equity and how, they need to be interchangeable in some circumstances, but how they are very much so different and how we need to make out our actionable steps and our behavior to kind of go with each one of those.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Dr. Macklin, the work that you're doing, one of the top DEI leaders in the industry, right, and the top one to watch in 2023. You've dealt with education, you've dealt with athletics. What is the work that you see that we still need to do, Dr. Macklin?
Well, I think a couple of things, and you bring up a great point, Dr. Brown. Here, I think a couple of things. I think first that this work has to cause a level of self-reflection and introspection. And so when you're taking a look at the aspects of an organization, I think elevating equity, about a month ago, Dr. Brown released a report that said 80% of organizations or companies are stuck with the work, right? So don't know where to get started, have not got started, and don't know where to go. I think when you talk about this work, the collective actions piece, equity is about accountability, and it's about being able to move the needle. Let me help you out with this. There is a difference between movement and moving.
Mm-hmm.
Movement and moving.
Mm-hmm.
I can run in place. I can do jumping jacks. I have movement, but I'm not moving.
Yes, sir.
So when you speak to the work and being able to move the work, those are the pieces that are key. I think the Knight Commission, higher education, the Knight Commission recently released a report which is saying that all of the NCAA aspects should have a DEIA component. Now, I think the disturbing piece about that is that report came from 70% of higher educational institutions, athletic institutions, had no DEIA framework.
True.
Had no way to get there, right? And so I think all of those pieces come into tandem when you talk about doing the work. And I think the last thing is that you are seeing now universities, Southern University, you are seeing now universities really put that piece or that place as we really speak to that athletic diversity director of athletics in institutions. But I think when we talk about representations, good, but it's not good enough. Being able to address the inequities and injustices in college sports is an ongoing investment that every president, every athletic director, every coach, every program should be involved in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as the work continues to go on, it's not something that is a one-off thing, and individuals don't understand that. It's an ongoing, perpetual component that needs to happen. It's an amoeba. It moves and it ebbs and it flows, but it needs to grow. And I thank you all. And viewers, I told you, titans in the industry that we're talking to right now. And as we shift to another topic before we go to break, um, mentoring, the life coaching, the professional development. We have about a minute and 30 seconds before we go. So how important is it for young people as they're leaving school and entering the workforce to be invested in those constructs of mentoring to professional development? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Robinson. How important is it as they transition from being a student athlete into the workforce with those things?
I think it is critical. I think it's one of the most important things that you can have, having someone in that capacity to lead you, to guide you. Sometimes that could be lifelong. I tell people on the side to have somebody on the professional side, somebody on the personal side, and spiritual side. Sometimes you can get all of those in one, but it is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have miscues. I think that the other piece is that you to grow into a person that you can have sponsorship or allyship.
Yes, sir.
And individuals that can not only give you advice, but as Dr. Macklin said, help with that moving.
Yes, sir.
From one position to the next. And we, in our industry of the search consulting, we we breed on the fact of saying, who is your mentor? And having sessions, having structured sessions, matching individuals up. There's a lot of associations that we work and they do that type of work. And when those individuals learn the art of mentorship, for them to jump into that space on their own, to be mentoring those behind them, providing help from something simple as resume, cover letter, interview skills, interviewing questions that they've ran upon, design of how they're putting information together. There's a wide scope of how you can be helped and you can help others in that area.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So stay with me, Dr. Macklin, Jordan, stay with me. We're going to go to break, but when we come back, we'll pick right back up where we left off. You're watching From the AD's View with Dr. Cedric Brown. We'll be right back after this break.
Smooth, luxurious, a bold statement that'll leave you speechless. Our making models are elegant with class, total experience, customized. Your masterpiece at your doorstep. Johnson Luxury Auto.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back. You're watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Be sure to catch us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern for more open and honest discussions on From the AD's View. If you want to get in contact with me, you can reach me on my Instagram at From the AD's View. Let's bring back our guests, Jordan Kilpatrick, Dr. Michael Macklin, and Dale Robinson. And before the break, we were talking about how important it is for students to transition from their education into the workforce with mentoring and professional development. Jordan, what are you seeing as, you went to SIU Edwardsville, you went to SIU Carbondale, you were, heavily into developing individuals and things like that. And that's what you do right now as a life and women's coach. How important is it that they transition from that student to the workforce and having a mentor or someone to guide them, as Mr. Robinson said, in their professional development?
I'd say that component is imperative. I see a lot of younger people, and I don't know if one would consider me to be in the older people group, but those who are, coming out of college and in that age range, I see a lot of struggle and difficulty with things so simple as organization, prioritizing time and putting some things in place so that tasks are being completed in a timely fashion, and finding that new career path, what that may look like. How does that function with really getting out of that natural habit of sports? If one was an athlete, I know that can be difficult for some. It's like a structured a well-oiled machine. When you're in college and you're an athlete, you have your practice and you have the games and you have the workouts. Well, when you're done with that, there's a drastic change in just that scheduling component. And I think some people struggle with things as simple just that, figuring out what adult life is really going to look like, and how to gel really well with that new career shift and that level of responsibility. So I think coaching, counseling, and just as Mr. Robinson said, you need the fullness of wellness. So that's your spiritual man, your mental health, physical health, accountability, which is one of the huge differences between counseling and coaching, is having really that one-on-one accountability. Hey, did you do that? Okay, this was what we figured out your schedule will look like. I see you're veering left. What's going on here? So I think having those things in place really helps to structure someone's life and give them a little bit more direction when they've not had that transitioning from that college life, that freedom component, and coming into what adulthood really looks like with the level of responsibility with career and those sorts of things.
That's a great point. And time management is huge.
Oh yeah.
And the load when I was a professor and I taught a strategies for success course in time management and academic success skills were important for those students to have some success. Dr. Macklin, in the work that you've done, and you've been killing it all over the country, but specifically here in the St. Louis area, what are you seeing that students that you were at Missouri Baptist for most of your educational experiences? What are you seeing that the student athletes need to gravitate to when it comes to learning professional development, skills and getting what they need, like Mr. Robinson said, resume building? How do they need to transition to something that helps them in the workforce?
Dr. Brown, great question. I think first of all, it's important to understand the difference between allyship and mentorship. I think when we talk about allies, being able to advocate for you, being able to help you and credit you with achievements, and all those pieces matter. But mentorship is that experienced professional who set aside that time to offer you guidance through your career development, even as much or as little as I have accomplished. I still have a number or a couple of mentors who are go-to in those spaces. So I think when we talk about those pieces, it's key. I think when we talk about development, professional development, that's being able to get better at what you're doing. The Higher Chronicle of Higher Education, I think, noted that Brown University has made a commitment to spend $100 million over the next 10 years on DEI training, which to help their faculty and staff get better, uncover hidden biases, unfair practices, hiring practices, boost company culture. And then your last question, Dr. Brown, really as we talk about the individuals who are leaving college and going into a field of education or a field, what pieces do you see really, and if you look at the universities today or the organizations today that I'm familiar, that I work with, it used to be salary, used to be the number one piece that persons wanted to know. Now it's more of a social justice stand. What does your organization stand for? Right? Yes, what do they stand for in these pieces? So I think that's piece. But for me, those pieces of hard work, dedication, commitment, right? Those pieces don't go away, and those are the pieces that are always there.
Well, like I said, viewers, we have some titans in this industry, and we have some thought leaders here that not only doing good work, but are holding people accountable for the work that needs to be done. Now, before we move on, Jordan, you are the new author of a brand new book called Be Restored, A Journey to Healing. Can you give us about 30 seconds, 45 seconds on what the book is about and how it came about?
Absolutely. So I was charged by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to go forward. This was a part of my calling and my purpose. I have a heart for women. And as I have journeyed through my own trials and tribulations, highs and lows of life, it just kind of came about. And now it's been brought to fruition that I've written this journal. It is a 30-day sequence journal. So specifically written for women. Now, anyone can read it and they very well may get something out of it. But when you read it, it is from the heart of a woman straight to the heart of another. Based on the 30 days. So you will read material that really challenges you to have some thought process, some self-reflective thought process. I think sometimes in our journey, we can do really well at pinpointing this happened in my life and this person caused it, or this happened in my life and this trauma or situation caused it. But being in a place where we have some time and space to really reflect on ourselves and what part of us needs work and molding and change to get to where it is we're trying to go. And it's a journey. There is no end point to healing. It's a continuous ongoing thing. As we know, life ebbs and flows. So this journal was written for that purpose, just for women to find themselves again, to ignite that passion, for their productivity, to figure out who it is that they're becoming, whether you're 25, 55, or 85. It is for you, for every woman. So I am excited and delighted that it is available. And I hope that it touches the hearts of women, because that's the purpose of it. So
And
thank you.
Jordan, that is on Amazon Books.
It is on Amazon. It is available now. You can find it simply by typing "Be Restored" and my first and last name. So yeah, and I got me a copy right here. So yes, it is available on Amazon. It can also be purchased directly through my website as well. There's a link on there that'll take you straight through it or
And
to
we'll
it.
and we'll get them to your link later on. Let's move on real quickly. We have about 8 minutes or so left in the show. And Ms. Robinson, I'm gonna go to you because being a commissioner and an associate commissioner and an assistant commissioner, um, what impact does I call them recruiting tools? What impact do the transfer portal and NIL, name, image, and likeness, how are they impacting college athletics, specifically college football and college basketball?
I think that access and opportunity, it's free trade market. I think that at one time people were locked in and they didn't have a way to do decisions that you could transfer once or you could get a release to transfer. Now it's a fully open market. The NIL is a great thing. We're only seeing the first phase of it, in my opinion, for those student athletes that have the ability to model, to have a business, to want to market. They are learning a great thing at this time in their life to be able to do that and to expand upon those skills and to receive money. I mean, there's different things that happen. People have injuries. So that is opening up a way of which, but all the things we talked about, they still need to be there. They're going to need mentors. They're going to need coaches. They're going to need allies. Those are things that go along, with it. The transfer portal, in the way a student athlete is making the transfer, is important. Is it the person that was recruiting you the most? Is it a school that has a little bit better major? The graduation piece of it, how are you using the graduate student portion of it? I think that needs to be analyzed in a lot. Sometimes it's about minutes, it's about playing time. So many people are in it, it's so erratic that I hope that over time, what goes into making a good transfer, and those resources I don't see are as readily as we need them to be right now. We see a lot of the successes, but people are going from place to place and not finding a home and what makes a home. So there's a lot of work to be done in the area of the portal. And there's a lot of work that we're in phase one in NIL that needs to be done at the same time. I'm happy that access and opportunity has been opened up through these particular platforms and areas.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, Mr. Robinson, because the knowledge that you have and the work that you've done before you've come and become an athletics practice leader, right, and a
Mhm.
senior consultant there is is invaluable, right? You bring an invaluable work to what you do in hiring individuals, like myself, ADs, or your firm also hires, educational administrators and things like that. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. So I'm gonna switch real quick before we leave, and I'm gonna make sure that everybody knows where you are. The men's and women's NCAA tournament is going on right now. I know that everybody's bracket is busted and torn apart and things like that. But let me start with you, Dr. Macklin. Dr. Macklin, who did you have winning the Final Four, the NCAA championship? Who did you have on the men's side, and who do you have on the women's side? Are your bracket still good? Give me about 20 seconds.
Yes, I'll give you 5 seconds. Mine's not hard. My bracket's busted. I live in Missouri, so my textiles go to Missouri, and so I support the University of Missouri. And as you know, they went home yesterday, and so that's very easy. That's my 5 seconds. On the women's side, I'm still rooting for South Carolina. I like to see the amazing work that Dawn Staley has done there, and so that's an easy one for me.
Okay, and Lady J, what about you on the men's side and the women's side? And I know that your mister, that he's entrenched in athletics, been doing his work and stuff like that, where he's been at. Who are your choices?
Well, I was devastated to see my dear Northwestern go home yesterday. So with that, I'm not sure, but for the ladies, still looking at Carolina. Hopefully, they do their thing. But yeah, Northwestern, we were right there. We were right there.
Right. And Mr. Robinson?
My former coach, R.I.P. Cleve Bryant, his last stop was Texas.
Okay.
So I'm thinking Texas on the men's side.
Rodney Terry down there doing his thing?
Yeah, South Carolina. I like Dawn Staley.
Okay. And Mr. Robinson, while we have you, if someone wants to get in contact with you, sir, how can they do that? How can they reach you?
DDR at SpellmanandJohnson.com. 1L.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. 1L. Yes, sir. And Lady J, how can they get in contact with you, and how can they get that beautiful book, Be Restored?
Yes, you can access my website, berestoredwithcoachj.com. There you'll see all the services and programs that's offered. There's a link straight to the book, so you'll be able to purchase that, as well as get in contact with me via email or referral.
And my auntie, Miss Deb, she was on here. I saw her, and my mother, Evangelist Patricia Ann Brown, she was on here as well. And mine and Jordan's grandmother, Verna Roseman, in heaven looking down upon us. She's with us as well. And then last but not least, Dr. Macklin, if they want to get in contact with you with that wonderful work that you're doing in DEI, how can they get you?
Definitely. My LinkedIn Michael Macklin Consulting here is the best way to get in contact with me. I will say that when we're doing this work, we have to have thought partners. We have to have allies. We have to have people who are in this work who truly understand it. No one has accomplished anything by themselves. We started off with the good book. And if you talk about mentorship in the good book and really what that has been able to mean, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Elijah, right? So I think those pieces are key. And so that is the best way to reach me.
Okay. And before I leave, I will be remiss, because my show is based in faith. I ask this to all my guests. How has faith impacted your life? Give me 30 seconds. Mr. Robinson, how has faith impacted your life?
I would be nowhere without it. It is my foundational backbone. I think that we all call on in weak moments and celebrate in times that faith and mercy has been granted. It is everything. And I tell people that the roads will get rough. Find a way to have faith as a foundational piece of what you do, because there's nothing without it, in my opinion.
Yes. Lady J?
Oh, faith has been instrumental. I mean, it has gotten me from A to Z many times over. The mercy and grace surely is efficient enough. And so, yeah, it's my rock for sure.
Absolutely. And Dr. Macklin, how has faith impacted your life?
When you look at the most formidable walk of Jesus, who loved everyone, but truly hung around with 12 and really get to understanding of what that really means, how it relates to the work. And then also for me, truly understanding that everyone is gifted, but some people never open their package. And so the same grace and mercy that we are afforded, we have to afford others.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you, Jordan Kilpatrick, Dr. Michael Macklin, Dale Robinson, for being on the show today. I'll see you all in the green room in the back. Do not forget to join us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern for more open and honest discussions on From the AD's View. Good night and good evening.